When you've spent years hauling gear on a transporter, the moment a base section starts to wobble or crack, it feels less like a surprise and more like a ticking clock. You start wondering if you should keep patching, find a specialist, or finally order a replacement. That hesitation is what I'm trying to clear up today. I want to help you decide if swapping in the tie-down 4060950 base section is a sensible fix or just another expense that won't solve the real problem. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's put this part in context. The TP250 and TP400 models use a steel base that connects the ladder frame to the transport chassis. Over time, the welds can fatigue, especially if you're loading and unloading heavy equipment daily. When that happens, the whole unit can feel loose, and the ride quality drops noticeably. The 4060950 is marketed as a complete base section, meaning it replaces the entire lower frame piece rather than just a bolt or bracket. For owners who have already noticed play in the rear or see rust eating at the welds, this is the kind of part that actually restores the original rigidity. Who should consider buying this replacement? If you own a TP250 or TP400, run them several times a week, and you've either seen visible wear on the base or felt the chassis flex under load, this part is a direct answer. It's also a solid option for anyone who's already taken the transport apart for another repair and wants to upgrade the base while they have the vehicle on the lift. Because the part is built from what Ty calls high-quality power ladder steel, you're not just getting a generic scrap piece, it's engineered to the same tolerances the original manufacturer used. Who might skip it? If your transporter is still under warranty, swapping this part yourself could void that coverage, so you'd be better off contacting the dealer. Also, if you only use the vehicle for occasional, light loads and the base feels solid, the cost and effort of a full replacement might outweigh the benefits. Some owners of newer model transporters have moved to a newer chassis design that the 4060950 won't bolt onto without additional adapters, so double-check your exact model number before ordering. Installation is the first practical hurdle. The base section bolts into place with a handful of standard nuts and bolts, but you'll need a torque wrench and a decent amount of floor space to swing the piece into position. I've seen a few DIY videos where the installer uses a hydraulic lift to raise the transport, then slides the new base under. If you're comfortable with basic mechanical work and have the right tools, you can finish the job in a half day. If not, you'll likely need a professional shop, which adds labor costs that aren't included in the price of the part. Now, about the strengths. The biggest win here is the cost-effective maintenance claim. Because the piece is sold as a complete assembly, you avoid hunting down multiple brackets, weld plates, or specialty fasteners. The material is the same gauge steel you'd expect from a factory part, so you don't sacrifice durability for price. In real-world use, replacing a worn base with this component brings the chassis back to its original stiffness. You'll notice the transport sits level again, the ladder rides smoother, and you can trust the frame under heavy loads without the lingering fear of a sudden crack. On the flip side, the weaknesses are subtle but important. The part is heavy, you're dealing with a solid steel section that can weigh upwards of 30 pounds, so handling it alone can be a strain. The packaging is fairly minimal, a cardboard box with foam inserts, which means you have to be careful during unpacking to avoid dents. Also, the item is listed specifically for TP250 and TP400, there's no mention of compatibility with the newer TP500 series, so anyone with that model would need to verify fitment elsewhere. Lastly, while the product description promises easy maintenance, the reality is that you still need the right tools and a workspace that can accommodate the full width of the transport. From a value perspective, the price sits between a full professional rebuild and a cheap third-party fix. You're essentially paying for a genuine type component without the dealer markup. If you compare the cost of a professional chassis overhaul, which can easily climb into the high hundreds, the 4060950 saves you both money and downtime. The real value shows up when the transporter is already out of service. You can order the part, replace it, and get back on the road in a day or two instead of waiting weeks for a service appointment. Let's talk about a couple of scenarios. Imagine you run a small landscaping business and your TP250 is the workhorse for moving equipment between sites. One morning you notice the ladder wobbling as you drive over a speed bump. That wobble translates into extra wear on the suspension and a less comfortable ride for your crew. Swapping the base section restores the solid feel,